You?
The world is not enough.
It was more than enough. You're firmly into Brosnan now. He's established, he's had one good one to begin with, one pretty middling one to follow up, and I think this is the point at which you hope he's gonna come rocketing in with a third that's really, really great to cement him as a really, really decent Bond. And it's not a total disaster. It's comparable to Tomorrow Never Dies. It's maybe a little bit more tedious, and you come away with a general sense that the wheels aren't falling off this series yet, but the nuts on the bolts are starting to get very, very loose. I know we've said this feels like a series that's kind of running on fumes before, but it really does at this point. Funny enough, you just kept the spec on for the whole film.
No, and the next movie.
Not taking these off.
So we did the drinking game. I won't explain the rules, but the rules will be down below. And this was the biggest one yet for such a boring nothing film.
I would never have guessed.
How many?
So it was, if you play classic rules, 166 drinks. If you play special Brosnan chin rules, it's 186.
It's a lot. There's a lot of chin.
I told him he had to hurt me.
I always thought that Brosnan got better as the films went on. That was my feeling. I think I even said that when we reviewed GoldenEye. And I'm feeling that he's getting more comfortable, and that started to irk me. He's very tight in GoldenEye. He starts to do a bit more flamboyant stuff in Tomorrow Never Dies. In this one, he's pulling all these eyebrow expressions. He keeps touching his face, his hair, his ears. He's hand in weird places in his jacket. None of it worked for me in this, for Brosnan.
Brosnan's one of those conversations. If you ever have a conversation, who's your favourite Bond? And people, whoever their favourite Bond is. If Brosnan pops up, Brosnan, I think a lot of people see him as a steadying the ship, a safe pair of hands. I don't know many people who love him, but I don't know anyone who hates him.
Again,
and before we rewatched this, I would have thought the same. I found him this time in this film to be smug to the point of insufferable.
The plot.
You do it.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I can't.
All right.
I can't. I haven't got the strength to do.
A man is assassinated in the beginning of the film, an oil baron, and then James Bond is trying to find out who the assassin was while also protecting the daughter who's inherited the oil millions. And it seems to be that the villain is this man who feels no pain, sort of boring bald man. And then the big twist, which isn't very well hidden in the movie, is that, no, in actual fact, it was the oil baron's daughter who's behind it all, and it's again the plot of Goldfinger, where someone is going to detonate a bomb in order to increase the value of their substances that they already own. But the big thing here is, it's a woman villain this time round and his love interest, which sounds really interesting and I think could have been good. It's all very dull. This is the worst skiing sequence in Bond up to this point. Oh, no, ever. Yeah.
What? You said...
Is that Bond's worst gadget ever?
Bond's worst gadget. The Bond song is good.
Oh yeah, I really like this. I was, at the time as a teenager, I liked Garbage.
Where the film excels is the opening. Up until the end of the Garbage song, it's a very good movie. I mean, the opening in Bilbao, you know, the original opening is a little kind of, so fine. but it leads into a fantastic sequence.
You're onto a winner.
I saw them film this. I was on a boat going along London with my mum, and yeah, we had to stop for ages just before Tower Bridge while they filmed a shot that wasn't used in the final bit, because there's a big chunk of London that is just skipped. They clearly cut out, and it was just him going under Tower Bridge. But knowing it was Bond, and you just kind of knew it was, because everyone just went, well, that's clearly James Bond. There's a man in a suit in a little gadget boat chasing a white boat. Is exciting. I wish it was in a better movie. I wish this scene was in a better movie.
Yeah.
But it is it's fun, and then ends with James Bond saying, "Don't blow us up!
Don't blow us up!
This is one of the dullest looking James Bond films. They go to some of the most boring locations. Oil fields, deserts, mud flats.
God, that was awful. One of the most unappealing location establishing shots of any Bond film, I think. Oh. Thank God I brought this convertible.
What a lovely location.
It's the least exotic Bond film yet.
It's got so many lows, the worst skiing sequence, worst gadget, worst location, worst Bond. In this, they didn't go to Istanbul because there was a terrorist bombing, so they just do green screen. So it's just sort of exteriors and then sets it in Spain or Pinewood, I guess.
Although Zukovsky's caviar shed is a really good set.
That's a very good set, and it's also the other, not as good as the boat sequence, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
That was meant to be in GoldenEye. They'd written it for that. And I think that's a fun sequence. We have maybe our worst gambling high-stakes game.
So, Miss King, what'll it be? Vanteon, blackjack? The price is right, Mr. Zukovsky. Are you familiar with Bruce Forsyth's The Price is Right?
It's nice to see you. To see you! Pick one and tell us what it is. Pick hole, tell us what it is. Oh! You've got to be. You've got to be. Oh, I say. Goodness knows what. Oh, no. I cannot believe it. Oh, my goodness. That's dreadful.
Good game, good game. Electra, is that you?
I just let off an atomic bomb. Let me know the half-life so I know when to come back in.
That's dreadful.
Sophie Marceau plays Electra, the villain. I always thought she was pretty good, and I think that's maybe just because the other Bond girl is so bad. There's never a moment where you go, it couldn't be her. Throughout you're sort of thinking, I don't quite trust this woman. And then you go, oh, she's the villain. Well, yeah, of course she's the villain. So I don't think that works. I don't think the love story works. I think she's fine.
You wouldn't kill me. You'd miss me.
I never miss.
The other Bond girl, Dr. Christmas Jones, famously one of the worst ones.
Won a Razzie, first Bond to win a Razzie, I think, this film. So this is a case of very good intentions, because Sophie Marceau is the villain, the love interest and the twist villain, and Denise Richards is the globe-trotting nuclear scientist. She's actually dressed like Lara Croft at one point. She's this, I get not a tomb raiding, but she's a Soviet bunker raiding, globe-trotting brainiac. Fantastic, really nice idea to write the more interest, not just clothes hangers. It's, I think, a symptom of the fact that everything in this film most things in this film are just a little drab.
What's wrong about you?
Yeah? How so?
I thought Christmas only comes once a year.
That's dreadful.
But M is getting even worse in this one. So Judi Dench is so wonderful, the writing of the character in GoldenEye. Then it's getting a little bit more Mummy M in Tomorrow Never Dies. We're in full Grandma M, you know, what's his name? Mr. Kipling's wife, you know, coming in with the...
Mrs. Kipling.
What did I... Yeah.
Well, again, good intentions. Make M a bigger part of the film rather than just the exposition, rather than set up Bond for his adventure. Make M an integral part of the entire film. Fantastic idea. In theory, in practice, okay, you know, not terrible, not particularly interesting.
Robert Carlyle plays Renard.
Renard.
The man who was shot in the head and is getting stronger. Shoot yourself again in the head.
It was all a favour. Again, I think this is the film of good intentions that don't quite pay off in practice, because he isn't really the villain, he's the henchman. And the idea of this henchman with no feelings, literally no sensations, a man who's kind of impervious to pain and you can't be reasoned with, it's a really decent idea. And I also, you can completely see the logic in casting Robert Carlyle, because he's only a few years after Trainspotting, where he plays this absolute psychopath.
Yeah.
A man who looks like he would glass you in a pub. Again, in practice, the whole mixture, it's all just pretty drab and really unremarkable to look at.
All he seems to do is keep damaging his hands. That seems to be what the powers are for. You've got a glass in hand, like hot rock. Stop damaging your hands.
You've still got to fight, Renard.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a submarine. It's big and black, and the driver is a very good friend of mine.
I watched this film a lot as a kid, and basically my favourite thing in it was Robbie Coltrane. And I like the idea of this jocular ex-KG, large man who likes caviar and booze and women.
Yeah.
He's the sort of totally unrefined, much less classy Russian version of Bond. I really, really like that, and I like the love act, double act that he sort of spars verbally with Bond, but then always cowers when Bond threatens him. And I really like that. I always found it a really odd choice that they brought him back to kill him off with a kind of crappy death. Desmond Llewellyn's last film. It's bittersweet to see him, because this was, I think, was always going to be his last.
Yeah.
And he very sadly died within a month, I think, of the film
in an
coming out.
accident. So I'm glad that the films were able to, that he was able to get a goodbye, which is astonishing that happened. And I think they do the goodbye. It's moving with knowledge of what was about to happen.
I've always tried to teach you two things. First, never let them see you bleed.
And the second?
Always have an escape plan.
One of the great unintended consequences of the reboot with Casino Royale was that we didn't have to have any more of John Cleese's RQ, that he just becomes.
I'm also glad they did cut out an incredibly bad scene from the film where a woman is touching one of those toys you can buy, electric toys, those are electricity toys, and then they seem to be lifting her hair up with wires, then they just have her upside down, you can see the blood rushing to her face, have her pretend to drink a cup of tea so it looks normal, then have her like the Bride of Frankenstein, and electrocute her, man. The film ends on a submarine. It's a very boring sequence, just not very good. And then we have a rather dull fight. I keep thinking about how good the fight with Sean Bean is in GoldenEye, and then it's in a submarine, a submarine, vertical submarine, and it's just boring.
You've got the potential for falling down, and you get a tiny bit of that with some of the submariners, but
and then I don't understand the science behind any of the reason of how
plugs in a Hoover or something?
Plugs in a...
Switches it to blow?
It's a video clip. I'll be talking about the blower feature. Now the front of our vacuum has an inlet port which will allow you to suck up materials, and the back of our vacuum has an exit port, and this is going to allow you to use your vacuum as an air blower. When using this feature, you do, however, want to be very careful, because when using certain attachments, the powerful force of air coming out could actually injure you or injure someone else.
Feels like, you know, Cubby Broccoli and then Barbara Broccoli and everyone involved kind of got into this routine of like, well, there's a formula to this. We've got to have locations, we're running out of locations. We've got locations, we've got to have gadgets, we've got to have chases in a car, on a boat or something, we've got to have explosions, we've got to have a requisite number of Bond women. And Bond's got to make some sort of humorous, you know, Bond mo as he blows a man's face off. But we've got to the point where it's not just leaning into this, it's relying on it in the most extreme way. And the whole thing is starting to fit. It's not even starting to, it sort of feels like a sort of self-parody. Bond is not only relying on a good reputation, he's parodying himself here, and it's like everybody's forgotten. People, at some point, they got it into their heads that these things have to be a piss take. They feel like a joke at their own expense, and we're just stuck in this trap now, as if everybody's so blinkered. It's like the fall of Soviet Russia. Everything's going wrong, but we just have to double down. We just have to pretend it's not, and just keep doing it. And they're gonna do it for another one. It's gonna get even worse, and it's gonna reach arguably a low point. Thank God you're gonna get an external force that's gonna come in and throw up. Like Austin Powers, amazingly, didn't do it. You've got, by this point, a second film that's openly pointing and laughing at these films. It's gonna take another series to come in and just do all the original stuff better for a contemporary audience. But look, we're nearing the rebirth.
Thank God.
But we've got to do, you know, the old phrase of it's the darkest before the dawn. We've got to push on through I think an irredeemably terrible film. Good game.
That's dreadful.